Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another installation of Season 2 of the Loden Sports Outlier Sessions. My name is Matt Pajak, co-founder of Loden Sports. Before we get started, quick plug on what Loden Sports is. We are the affordable human performance data provider. If you're interested in learning more about how we benchmark athletic development, inform athlete health and readiness, and identify outliers, visit our website at www.lodensports.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Loden Sports, and read our blog, which is also available through our website. I also want to throw a shout out to our friends at Yellow Box Macaroons, the first unofficial sponsor of the Loden Sports Outlier Sessions. If you're a fan of sweet treats, their hand-curated coconut macaroons are a must. Continuing on the tradition of Jackie Weiss, Yellow Box Macaroons is the most delicious box of macaroons in the world. If you don't like coconut or macaroons, that's on you. Find your next box on www.yellowboxmacaroons.com or on Instagram at yellowboxmacaroons. The Outlier Sessions have been created as a way to bridge the gap and create a connection between the aspiring and the achieving. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, today we have the first international guest to grace the Loden Sports Outlier Sessions, hailing from Sydney, Australia, Oregon State rising sophomore infielder Travis Bazzana, coming off an impressive freshman campaign where he logged a full season worth of starts, batted .306, 26 extra base hits, and he showed off the speed as well with 4 triples, 14 stolen bases. Travis, thanks for hopping on with us.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to learning more about your journey, and we're hoping you can give us a scoop on Australia baseball as well. But before we get into all that, let's get it going with a few quick hitters. So, Travis, have you ever woken up with a huntsman spider in your room?
I think I have, but I couldn't recall like a story. I feel like sometimes you just see huntsmen in the top corner of your room or whatever, just randomly. So I couldn't recall or tell you exactly when it happened, but I'm sure there's been a huntsman somewhere on my wall somewhere when I wake up one day.
Yeah, I went to high school with someone from Australia, and they were telling me about the huntsman spider, how big it was, and how it's pretty common to just show up in your house. And he said he woke up one morning with one on his chest. So,
yeah, never on my body, but I've definitely seen a couple huntsmen.
Yeah, for
Early in the
anybody
morning.
listening who hasn't seen one of those, make sure you give it a Google real quick. So, all right, second one. Have you ever tried kangaroo?
I have. I've had kangaroo once in my life, I think, and it was probably when I was like 13 or 14. I remember having a kangaroo steak, but it's not very common, and I'm not sure how many people actually eat it, but I did try it once. It's just like a lean. I think you could compare it to like a gamey type meat here, I'd say.
Yeah, it's probably similar to like us eating deer. You
Yeah,
don't go to restaurants and see venison everywhere, but there's certain restaurants you can run up on that'll have that.
no doubt. Yeah.
All right, 2 Australian-born athletes, Ben Simmons or Kyrie Irving. Keep one.
Kyrie Irving. Yeah.
Oh man, that didn't seem like a tough one for you?
No, it's not a tough one. I don't know. I have had my periods where I absolutely love Kyrie Irving. I've never really loved Ben Simmons like that. And then, yeah, just, I don't know. Ben Simmons has never given me the best impressions. I don't know. I feel like I like Kyrie more.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. In Australia, what is the most bitter sporting rivalry?
Queensland versus New South Wales, state of origin. It's rugby league, which is a form of rugby. There's rugby union and rugby league, both very popular in Australia. And yeah, rugby league, 2 of the biggest states in the country are New South Wales, where I'm from, and Queensland. And there's a 3-game series every year where the best players from New South Wales and Queensland battle it out for kind of bragging rights across those 2 states on the East Coast. And yeah, it's huge fan support and a big rivalry. It was great in my family growing up because my dad grew up right on the border of Queensland and New South Wales, but he was a Queenslander at heart. So everyone in my family was from New South Wales and kind of just loved the the moments, battling it out, watching with our dad and talking a lot of smack, and it was just great times.
That's awesome. Is that the type of rivalry that's better to watch on TV, or is that one that you feel safe going to in person?
In person, it's amazing. Some of the best like fan experience I've ever had. So I love the environment there when I go, but a lot of the time, watched it at home with family and friends, and it was still great. But I wish I watched more live, honestly.
That's what's up.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna shift away from Australia now to the U.S. real quick. What food item have you grown to love in the U.S.?
Oh, honestly, the Mexican food. Like in Australia, there's really no Mexican food because I guess there's not that many Mexican people in Australia. That many Mexican people in Australia, and so I think here, like, there's good quality Mexican food, and I think that good options, high calories, and it's nice and easy and tasty. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. That's one of the beautiful things about the United States, and you'll find this as you progress through the game of baseball, and you probably end up off the West Coast. Like, you can find good Mexican food in any part of the country. It's not just limited to Southern California or Texas or whatever it is. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yep.
And then I'll hit you with one last quick one, and then we'll kind of get into it a little bit more. Who's your favorite player in baseball right now?
Julio Rodriguez by a long shot. A little bit of bias because I'm in the Northwest right now watching the Mariners play a little bit, but you literally, like, he'll ground out to shortstop, he'll hit a ball 450 feet, and there's just a huge smile on his face, and it's just so fun to watch. So I think huge future in the game for that guy. And yeah, I just love guys that are really tooled up and play the game with a bit of excitement. So Julio's definitely my favorite player right now.
Yeah, that guy's no doubt tooled up. The first time, so I haven't even seen him play in a game, but the first exposure I had to him was in the home run derby this year.
Yeah.
And I knew immediately that there was something different about that guy.
Yep.
And I think he's got an opportunity to really, hopefully the Mariners make it back to the playoffs this year for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's, especially in the wake of everything that just came out on Tatis, and we won't be seeing him for the rest of the year. Like, it's a good one.
He's going to have a big future for sure.
All right. So transitioning here, long-term athlete development. That's something that's very important to us at Loden Sports. So we're going to get going here with a few of our signature LTAD questions before we get more into your journey. Let's start with emotional well-being. It's important. Gratitude is something we like to dwell on every single day. Travis, what are 3 things that you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to be pursuing my passions and dream in the game of baseball in the United States and in this beautiful summer. So definitely pursuing baseball. That opportunity is amazing. I'm grateful for that. The sun's out and it's blue skies. It's been great weather up here in Washington at the moment. So I'm grateful for the weather. It's just nice. Sometimes in the Northwest, it gets a little bit gloomy and rainy. So it's nice to spend some time with the sun out and warm weather for sure. And I'm grateful for my support system, I'd say, like my family and friends, whether they're back home or here in the States. I feel like I've got a really great network of people that are pulling the same way as me and just here to connect with me. And yeah.
That's awesome. And you touched on the weather up in the Pacific Northwest in the summertime. That's the only time I've visited Seattle. Been there like 2 or 3 times in July, and the weather is perfect. So, yeah, it's nice that you're able to appreciate that. Normally you'd be off doing something else in the summertime, and you only get to see the rainy period for the other 10 months. But glad you're experiencing that. 3 things on my end. First off, battery life on phones and devices. It's pretty remarkable that even though we have to charge them daily, they can stay on continuously for months and in some cases years without you having to turn them off. 2 is an even table or chair. There's nothing worse than a wobbly table or chair. like when you're eating or trying to get work done or anything like that. So fortunately, right now, I have both. Um, and then the last one is the pursuit of miscellaneous skills. So like pickling peppers or baking bread. Are they necessary? Probably not. Are they stimulating and fulfilling? Absolutely. And I guess I would encourage just about anyone to pursue activities that stimulate and fulfill them.
Yep.
So,
Good stuff.
yeah. Second LTAD question is about ignition. Ignition is what keeps the fire lit for the athlete to continue to want to play their sport as they get into high school, college, beyond that, in whatever capacity. And a lot of kids, at least this has been the trend here in the States, are quitting sports as they get into high school because they were pushed too hard as a kid. And ignition is organic. It's what captures the interest of the young athlete. And it could be a person in your life, someone you grew up watching, a moment that kind of captures your attention. What or who ignited you when you were younger to pursue the game of baseball?
Yeah, I think my dad for sure. And it's funny you touched on it, but you said like kids are quitting because they're kind of being like forced to do things, forced to play sports, and they're pushed really hard by people. And yeah, I think it's my dad because he supported me but never forced me. He trusted in me and guided me the right way, but never ever pressed anything on me. And so I was able to like go through failure, be competitive, have opportunities, and just learn myself. And then that just like grew the fire in me to want to get better. And it never mattered whether I went 0 for 4 or 4 for 4. I still felt the same love for my dad. So it was like, it gave me all the confidence in the world to go out there and get better and do great and love baseball. So yeah, it was unconditional with him, but it was never ever pressed on me. Like I could have played cricket, I could have played rugby, I could have played soccer, whatever it was, and he wouldn't have cared. He would have just been happy that I was doing what I wanted to do. So yeah, it was just that guidance and never forcing me. So that allowed me to find that ignition as I grew older and grew more mentally mature to get me to where I am now.
That's awesome. Shout out to your dad. And I know a handful of dads that are similar to your dad in allowing, their kids to kind of guide their own experience and decide what they want to pursue and wholeheartedly support that. But I'm sure you've seen it, whether it be here in the States or maybe back home. I don't know how prevalent it is back in Australia, but it's a big issue here. But like you've been around probably at some point, the kid who's, not necessarily the heart's not in it. They're more doing it, because of some kind of outside influence or some expectation. And the moment that expectation's not there, that they'll probably just drop it.
No doubt.
So pretty awesome to hear.
Yep.
Let's talk about sleep. It's the least dangerous, most legal performance enhancer. What's your relationship like with sleep?
Oh, it's great. I guess since I was pretty young, I've always kind of dove into books and research and whatever it is to try give myself the best opportunity to get better at baseball. And so like when looking into success and human performance, like obviously sleep is basically the number one thing every single time. And obviously it's super important. So I guess in the last 24 months or so, I've tried to create good routines and good habits in terms of sleep. So I try to make my room as dark as it can be wherever I am, keep the room cool as much as I can. And then I feel best when I get 9 hours of sleep, but a lot of the time I'll wake up naturally at like 8.5 or 8 hours, 45 minutes. So, and feel great. So yeah, I think about 8.5 hours for me is good. 9 is even better. But yeah, I think just putting myself in the best environment for sleeping quality and longer is super important to me, and it's helped me recover and perform better. And you can definitely feel it. So I don't have to rely on any caffeine or anything if I'm getting good sleep. So yeah.
Well, you seem like a guy that's pretty well tuned into the benefits of sleep. probably more so than the majority of people. Have you by any chance read the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker?
No, I actually haven't.
Yeah, well, if you're looking to supplement your knowledge on sleep, although like I said, you're well ahead of the curve. That's been a really good one for me to reference, and it's actually referenced in our LTAD. So it sounds like you're the kind of guy that's interested in that. I saw, on your profile that you're interested in sport performance and potentially pursuing that beyond baseball at some point, hopefully
Yep.
a long time down the road.
Yep.
So if you're interested and we can connect after this, I'd be interested in getting your feedback on kind of where we're at with our LTAD and in the draft on that, and
No doubt. I'd love to
taking a
help.
look at it.
Yep,
So
for sure.
cool. All right, something that not a ton of people are probably aware of yet is that over the past few years, the arrow has been pointed up on baseball in Australia. And it seems like there are more and more Aussies getting opportunities to play professionally and collegiately here in the States. Travis, enlighten us a bit. What's it been like from your perspective? Where did Oregon State see you? How'd you get your opportunity? Obviously, we don't see a ton of Aussies in Power 5 NCAA baseball.
Yeah, there's definitely a positive trend right now, and the idea and plan in terms of baseball in Australia has just gotten better and better lately. And I think there's a really good long-term vision, which is allowing us to do better things in the short term as a country with baseball. So that's great to see. But my opportunity with Oregon State was, pretty crazy, pretty lucky. Basically, I decided that I was going to go on a trip to the Arizona Fall Classic in October 2019 in hopes of getting recruited by whatever good college it could be, whether it was JUCO, D1, D2, anything. I didn't really know where I was going to fit in, being in Australia, but yeah, I decided I was going to do that. And so I had a good half a year to prepare. And so I started doing academic testing, academic studies practice, like SAT stuff, and set myself some goals of kind of what kind of player I wanted to be by the time I stepped foot at the Arizona Fall Classic in front of college coaches, to where I could get recruited. And at first, like in Australia at that time, a lot of people just kind of threw the idea that JUCO was going to be the only and perfect route for me. And if I want to play, I'd have to go there. And I kind of had the right mentors in Ryan and Trent Olchin at the time. Ryan Rollins-Smith and Trent Olchin at the time that were taking me away. They really pushed the idea that like I was good enough and had the capacity physically and mentally to go to a great Power 5 school. And so we went to the tournament, and I brought over good academic results, which kind of puts your foot in the door a little bit with some of these schools. And then, I just played hard, tried to be as much of a leader as I could on the field. And it was really just the effort, intensity, and presence on the field that really helped me get recruited with some of these Power 5 schools on the West Coast. But it took, months, years of kind of building into a player that was going to be able to compete at the D1 level. So it was like, all right, who are the best guys in the D1 level at that time? It was like, I'd be watching Andrew Vaughan. I was watching JJ DeBlade. I was watching Adley Rutschman. Okay, what do they do? What do they do in their swing? What do they do physically? And then it was just getting after it in the weight room and on the field for the months in prep to where college coaches were going to see me and really thought I could make an impact on their team. So I went to the Arizona Fall Classic, and Oregon State saw me for a couple games and was really impressed. And I went on an official visit, and it was the best place for me.
Oh, that's huge. A couple of things. One, I'm pretty sure I was at that event in Arizona, and I probably put a bat sensor on your bat at some point during BP.
Right. Uh-huh.
I don't know if you were aware of that, if Andrew filled you in on that or not, but I wasn't aware of that up until this moment that you were there, but kind of neat. Two, you definitely fit the spirit of the outlier sessions in that you're an outlier for Australia, and that you're playing for Oregon State. And I talked to Andrew a bit back when we worked together at USA Baseball, and for the people listening, Andrew worked at USA Baseball for a summer with me with the prospect development pipeline, and he's Australian, and he came over. He played JUCO, and that's kind of what it sounded like, similar to what you just said. The experience was for Australians that wanted to play baseball in the States was go the JUCO route. So, commend you on having all your ducks in line and then coming over here and, taking advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So, that must have been just before that.
Mm-hmm.
In Arizona, you were in the U18 World Cup in South Korea. You batted leadoff for a very strong Team Australia. You guys finished just short of a medal, but you gave just about everyone a fight in that tournament. I know there was a close game with Team USA that probably could have gone either way. What was that experience like?
It was amazing. Being able to put on the jersey for your country is always like super special and something you can't really replace. So it was amazing in that sense. And then connecting back to the me getting recruited in college, it all came in the same couple months, and it was kind of a launch pad for me mentally playing at the World Cup, because you go into a game against Team USA and you got Pete Crow Armstrong, Drew Romo, Mick Abel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter. These big name guys about to go in the first round, and Vanderbilt commit, Florida commit, Power 5 schools everywhere, every step of the way. And we go out there, compete, and probably could have taken that ball game, lose 2-1. And for me, it was like, wow, like that's a loss, and it obviously hurts, but it's like, I can compete at that level. I'm 1 year younger than a lot of these guys. I'm right there with them. And so it gave me the confidence to where I was like, I'm going to get recruited by Power 5 schools in a month's time. Like it's going to happen, because I know I'm right there with them, and soon enough, over the long term, like I'm going to step ahead and grow. So it showed me that those kids that I see on Instagram, like Austin Hendrick hitting balls 130 miles an hour, obviously that's an exaggeration, but
right,
that kind of thing, like just dominating in the US, I never really got to see what they were like. And then to play against them, obviously they were incredible, but it was like, all right, they're still human. And it kind of put it in perspective and really allowed me to be confident going into getting recruited, for sure. But it was amazing. Korea was amazing too. I loved the place.
Yeah, I saw how tight that game was. I think I caught a little bit of it as well on the YouTube live stream. And you guys were impressive. And then, kind of jumping around a little bit here, fast forward a couple of years, Premier 12, I'm pretty sure Team Australia beat Team USA in that Olympic qualifier, if I'm remembering correctly. So that was kind of like, for me, I felt like you guys were a really good representation, and then to see it with the older guys another year or two later, and then, everything that's, I don't want to say that I'm hyping you guys up for 2022 U18 World Cup, and I want to get your thoughts on that here in a second, but, Australia is no longer the pushover that I viewed you guys as, 6-7 years ago when I first started working at USA Baseball, and I was like, oh, well, if it's not Japan or the Dominican Republic, then it's probably not a challenge.
Yeah.
So with that said, U18 World Cup going to be here in the States in September. What are your expectations for this next group?
A medal, truly. Like the way things are trending back home, and the way some of these kids that are going to be going to that tournament are working, and I'm in contact with some of them, like they're going to be a really strong squad. And the Australian teams always bring the competitive nature and always going to fight and like really make it it's going to be tough for whoever they play. But I think this group's going to bring over some more talent and tools than we ever have, and do something special for sure. I think we're going to compete really, really well.
Oh, I'm excited to see how that goes. I know it sounds like they've been over here all summer, which I feel like is a really good opportunity for them on a number of different fronts, but at least, warm up and get ready for September and not just have to hop off a plane and get ready to go. I'm sure you know that all too well.
Yeah.
But how have you seen the opportunities for Australian players evolve over the past few years? You talked about your experience and how really everything had to go perfectly for you to get the opportunity that you did. But it sounds like, in the work that Andrew and the group over at Australia Baseball are doing, to grow the opportunities. What's that looked like from an exposure standpoint past few years?
Yeah, I'd say like 3-4 years ago, it was kind of a turning point, and people started to really get a grasp of like there's really many opportunities out there, and we can make it work for a lot of kids. Like I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, most people in Australia really just said, all right, if you get offered a pro contract as a high schooler, you should take it. Like you need that opportunity, just take it and do that. And so like guys would go over underdeveloped and throw themselves into a pool of become a small fish in a big pond, and kind of leave or get released or something when they're like 21, 22 and kind of not know what to do with their baseball career. Now it's like, all right, like I can develop at college, I can go JUCO, I can go D1, and like people are opening their eyes to like there's so many different opportunities that you've just got to push for whatever's going to be best for you, and work so hard for the long term, and have that long term vision to where like not letting anyone just kind of tell you what your limit is right now, and go grow over time and give yourself those best opportunities. But it's definitely evolved because I think, people are understanding that there's more opportunities out there, and there's a bigger vision than just like, what can this kid do right now? It's like, all right, how can we develop the youngest and the best kids into like big leaguers, and
For sure. And hopefully you're on the front end of a large wave that's coming behind.
Yep.
And I know, obviously there's guys in the big leagues, there's guys in professional baseball right now, but I think having the Power 5 college baseball experience before your draft is really going to be unique for, someone from your country. So that's going to be really exciting to see. And we'll get a little bit more into, what's ahead for you in the next, couple of years before that. But the last question I kind of want to touch on in regards to the experience, I guess, as an amateur in Australia is, you've been around enough American players at this point, whether it be at college or, during the summertime or whatever that may be. Compare and contrast the experience between Australians and Americans, just in terms of, conversations you've had regarding travel baseball showcases, whatever that may be. Because here in the States, I guess to kind of give you a little context for the question, like, kids will play 8, 9, 10 months out of the year. And then on their big showcase summer, like they'll run themselves into the ground playing tournaments and going to every showcase and whatever it may be. And it's a very go grind, on the exposure circuit. So what kind of is the amateur experience for a high school kid in Australia playing baseball?
Yeah. It's completely different. So as soon as you kind of get to high school age in Australia, if you're a quality player, you end up playing with kids a couple years older, and then men pretty young. So like I started playing with men like 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds, 25-year-olds, whatever it was, when I was like 14, 15 years old. And I might have 100 at-bats, 80 at-bats a year at that point. Like, and the American kids are getting 400 at-bats. So it's like, it's totally different in that sense. Is like, there's way more game exposure here, but there's something to be said about the power of like a 15-year-old being in a professional dugout, or being in a dugout with a 30-year-old who's played at the highest level, or going out there and having to compete against a guy in his prime, a man in his prime doesn't care that you're a 15-year-old and he's trying to blow it by you, run it up inside, like play hard, and like you grow a lot from that. So I think there's some power in Yeah, playing against men, and I got to do some stuff in the ABL from about 15 to 18, and learnt a lot, which helped me get ready to play against kids my own age again, because I hadn't really played against kids my own age from about the age of 15.
That's kind of wild. I can't really think of any situation anywhere in the United States at any level where
Nope.
a 14 or 15-year-old is playing up against grown men in real
Yep.
competition.
Yep. Yep. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's cool.
Yep.
So, from looking at your profile, it's apparent that Travis Bazzana has always been much more than a baseball player. You talked about it earlier in regards to, your dad supporting you and playing all these different sports. In high school, you competed in track, basketball, rugby, soccer, and apparently you're quite the cricket player. How do you feel the diversity of your athletic background has helped you on the baseball field?
It's helped me with everything, really. Like, you could pinpoint cricket really quickly and say, like, those reps swinging a bat and hitting a moving ball, like, they obviously help me with barrel control and maneuvering my body into positions of bat to ball skills. So, like, I think those reps from a young age have just added to the skill of being a baseball hitter. And then, like, rugby taught me to take hits, get back up, have to be able to put yourself up against big, strong kids that are going to run you over. But, like, it's like, all right, how do I compete? So for rugby, it's like, all right, I got to tackle him low, as low as I can, and he'll fall if he's a big guy. And kind of comparing that to baseball, it's like, all right, I'm 5'11", I'm not 6'7" Aaron Judge, and everyone wants to talk about how the game's getting bigger and stronger and faster. Like, all right, how am I going to make it work? Like, there's guys in the league that are 5'11" and hit 30 homers a year now. What are they doing that I've got to do? So I think rugby taught me that. Soccer was a bit of fun and didn't play too much of it, but, like, obviously it's just another part of that diversity. And then the track side of things was, like, from a young age, I was just trying to pursue how I could be the best baseball player, and kind of everything just became my library, whether that was TV, books, people I talked to, and knowing that I have to be super athletic for baseball. It was like, okay, I need to get out and run and sprint. So I had multiple track and field coaches for sprinting in high school, just trying to get faster for baseball. And yeah, I'd say that helped me a lot in terms of being an explosive player, for sure. But it all ties in together and just taught me different things and made me a more complete athlete, for sure.
Man, that's an edge. I mean, you talked about pursuing different ways to be the best athlete that you can be, and ultimately pursuing track. I wish more amateur baseball players here in the States, and not just baseball, but all sports, would really see the value in training speed and training all of the things that track trains, and how that transitions onto a baseball field or onto a soccer field or basketball court or whatever they're playing.
Yep.
I think, continue to tap into that, continue to use that, because I think there's still, like, even athletes your age, once they get to college, once you get into the pro game, it's like they think running and baseball are mutually exclusive, and some of them do it and some of them don't. And the bare minimum is that you show up and you take BP and you take, ground balls, and you stretch and you go out there and play a game. And, I know a handful of guys in professional baseball at different levels that go above and beyond that to continue to try and progress or maintain their athleticism, at least in season, and then progress it in the off season, because they know that that's an advantage. So kudos to young Travis on that.
I'll just touch on one more thing. Like, I think I just see it as, like, you got 5 physical tools getting evaluated in this game all the time. Like, you're going to hit every day because you care how you hit on the field and how that tool shows up. It's like running speed's just another tool. So it's like, why wouldn't I find the best of the best and study the best of the best in terms of running? Because why would I leave that tool unturned,
100%. And then one more thing that I do want to touch on from what you just said in regards to cricket. You talked about before, the typical Australian player is getting close to 100 at bats a year, whereas the American player is getting 300-400 at bats over the course of a year when they're an amateur. And just the importance of cricket and the act of intercepting with a bat, a fast-moving object, and how even though you didn't get any more than 100 at-bats over the course of a year, supplementing it with cricket is getting you additional reps of basically doing the same thing, tracking something with your eye, intercepting it. A concept called donorsport, which I don't know how familiar you are with that. I think that's more of a European term, but really, like, you have cricket as a perfect supplement to baseball, and that's not really an opportunity that a lot of kids have here. But I think that that's really neat, and definitely was huge in the development of your hit tool.
100%. Like, from a young age, like I say, my mom's side of the family was a bigger cricket family, and my dad played baseball and also played cricket. And so, like, for me, I was in the backyard at a young age, like, with my mom just bowling me cricket balls, or my brother bowling me cricket balls. And then, like, my dad would flip me baseballs or feed the tee. Like, it was just constant, like, bat to ball reps and vision and swinging and rotating, like, over and over since I was 2 years old. Like, it all had to play a part in that, in the hit tool right now, I'd say.
That's awesome. We've objectively seen on our end from a lot of the work that we've done on the sports science regarding raw athleticism that power, quickness, speed, that kind of raises the ceiling for the athlete. It's clearly something that you understand really well. But regardless of sport, for a parent or younger athlete who may be listening, I guess go a little bit more into the weeds on the importance of being an athlete on a baseball field. Specifically, you talked about it from a tool standpoint and being evaluated, but there's plenty of athletes, I guess, on a baseball field that aren't really overly concerned about that. And maybe if you could break it down a little bit more, just to the 14-year-old kid who thinks he's a PO already and thinks that he doesn't need to get in the gym.
Yeah, I put it this way. I'd say the speed, power, and strength that you hold as an athlete is like the engine or ceiling of where your tools are going to sit on a baseball field. So it's like your floor is the skill you have, but, like, really that ceiling comes from the speed, power, and strength that are going to play into those tools. Like, you can't hit the ball 120 miles an hour like Aaron Judge if you don't have his strength and his mass behind the ball. And, like, you can't defend the way Trey Turner does or steal bags like him if you don't have that speed. And then, like, it's a real correlation between pretty much any of those tools. Like, power output, how much power you can put into the ground is going to play a huge part into how fast you can run, how hard you can throw, and how hard you can hit the ball. And, like, that's what people need to understand. And I'm lucky I grasped that through just, like, searching from a young age, that, like, the faster I can move more mass, the better I'm going to be on a baseball field, and it's going to play into all those tools. So I'd say that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, and I'm sure you've seen it to varying degrees at different levels, but there's always kids that are really talented in their sport. They've got a high level of skill. Maybe they've got a really good hit tool, or they've got a really good feel to pitch, throw strikes, spin the ball, whatever it may be. And they rest on that, and they don't take advantage of their growing years to try and, even if they're a bad athlete, get to average. If they're an average athlete, get to above average. If they're an above average athlete, really push the line of, like, all right, I'm going to be the best athlete on my team. A lot of them separate those two things, and again, they just kind of go off of, their ability on the baseball field. Then when the game speeds up, all of a sudden they're pretty pedestrian, and they just miss this huge opportunity over the past 2 or 3 years where their body was growing. And that's lost time, because I'm sure like, you're starting to reach a point where, as you get into your early 20s, you kind of are what you are, and it becomes a maintenance game. You could kind of liken it to concrete, where it's like the concrete's wet through teenage years and into your early 20s, and then it hardens, and it's your job to make sure that it doesn't deteriorate faster than everybody else.
Yep.
So really interesting stuff there. Let's transition here a bit and get a little bit more specific about your development as a player. Touched on it earlier. You had an impressive freshman year with the Beavers, all kinds of accolades, freshman All-American, all-defensive team, et cetera, et cetera. Talk about your transition into the program. When did you get to campus? What was your fall like? And when did it become clear that you're going to crack the starting 9?
Yeah, so I commit to Oregon State late 2019. And the recruiting coach at the time, we started talking about like my transition into the fall of 2021 and what it was going to look like and what I was going to do the summer before getting to the fall. So he hooked me up with the Corvallis Knights, which is the local summer ball team for Oregon State. And he said, I want you to play for the Knights and get used to Corvallis and get used to the field and whatever pre your freshman fall. And I was like, yep, lock it in. I'd love to do that. And so really early on when I committed, I organized that I was going to be playing summer ball for the Corvallis Knights in the West Coast League. And yeah, so I come to the United States June of 2021. And yeah, I play a full summer in Corvallis and in the Northwest. And lucky enough, like my coaches were able to watch games at Oregon State because that's where the Knights play out of. And I had a really great summer. And yeah, I kind of, I every time I played on Goss, I really made it clear to myself or made it important to myself that like my head coach is probably watching right now. My assistant coach that doesn't even, they haven't seen me play for 18 months. They've just seen a little bit of video in the cages, whatever. Like I got recruited and then it was all just across the world, you know? So I just tried to put on a show, play hard every time that summer league because they were right there to see it. And then I remember a game, it was kind of crazy. I remember a game, it was fireworks night against the Ridgefield Raptors at Oregon State. And our coaches I saw them up watching the game with their families at the field. And I hit like a go-ahead triple, made a diving play, and bunted for a base hit or something all in the same game. And we walked it off and it was like an electric game. And I remember like seeing my coaches after and my hitting coach was like, you know, man, like we're so excited for the impact you're going to make this year. Like you really have showed us a lot this summer and we can't wait for you to step into a role where you lead this team and we don't want you to be afraid of leading. And that I'll never forget that. And that allowed me to step into the fall with all the confidence in the world. And I truly, like, as much as people don't want it to work this way, I stepped onto campus in September last year with all the confidence in the world that I had that starting job and I was going to be one of the best players on the team and lead that team. And yeah, we get into live ABs, we get into fall training, and I really just committed to being good for the team and making an impact. And that's what I wanted to do since day one. It's like when I committed, everyone's like, damn, like no Australians can go there. I went to a D1 when I was 23 and I still wasn't good enough. Like, you're not going to be strong enough. That the Americans are too strong, this, that, hearing all these things, you're not going to be ready. And so all I wanted was to just prove all those people wrong and make an impact straight away. And that's what I worked towards. It was like, all right, what kind of player do I have to be when I step on campus to where I can make an impact straight away? And then, yeah, I balled out in summer ball, stepped onto the field in the fall and dominated. Like I was the best offensive player on our roster during the fall and the winter. And I gained the respect of all the older guys on my team and gained the respect of my coaches because I went out there and played hard and had no issues with confidence from day one. And it helped me build those relationships, especially with older guys, because they were like, damn, like this young guy, he's not scared. So yeah, I kind of just went on a tangent, but yeah.
No, it's all good. I mean, it's impressive to hear you talk. I mean, going all the way back to the very beginning of this conversation, it's obvious that you're wired different, and commend you on it. And I can't wait to see how far that takes you. It's obvious that you play with a chip on your shoulder. I wish there were more people that were wired the way that you're wired in the baseball environment. I think it would make it a lot more competitive and a lot more fun to watch. Not that it's not already fun to watch, but I just think in the age of the transfer portal and kind of the madness that surrounds that, I think you brought up and touched on a couple of things early on. Like every opportunity you have to step between the lines is an opportunity for you to go out and compete and leave an impression on somebody. You never know who's watching. In your case, you kind of knew who was watching, but there are so many guys that I've seen here in the States that they get their opportunity to go play D1 and then it's like foot off the gas. They're like, oh, I'm a D1 player now. And then, they show up, they get their butt kicked in the fall, and then they end up in the transfer portal. And right now, if you're in the transfer portal, there's not a home for you. I'm sorry. Like that's just how it is. And there's going to be a lot of kids, either dropping out of baseball or, heading in a very different direction on a baseball field this upcoming spring because of exactly that. So, kudos to you, salute, hats off, the whole nine, like, keeping your foot on the gas. And I'm sure it's not going to stop anytime soon. So, shout out to Oregon State. They got themselves a good one.
Thanks.
Speaking of Oregon State, what kinds of resources does Oregon State provide for your athletic development? And what do you specifically focus on to keep expanding your potential? And you don't have to go super deep into that because I know you've talked about, power, speed, strength. But just kind of talk about Oregon State and kind of what they provide.
Yeah, I think it starts with the staff. Is like our staff, from head coach to strength coach to analytics guy. Like everyone is willing to adapt and grow and like search for new ways to be better as a program. And that's what I love. So there's no holding us back in terms of our athletic development. So we have a great array of nutrition at our field in our clubhouse, ready for us. We've got a dietitian or nutritionist. I don't know how she likes to be called, but it's one of those two. And she guides us through our eating and our goals in terms of weight gain, weight loss, strength, etc., and helps us be more aware of what we're eating. And then we've got a great strength coach who's done it with the best. Awesome facilities in terms of that. And then just I think the people and connections you make at the school, like all are pulling the same way and want you to get better athletically. And then just off athletics, like our help for school stuff and being a student athlete is really there in terms of resources. Like the people trying to help us do well in school as well as be great on the baseball field are awesome too. So yeah.
Awesome. I mean, if you can, all the videos and the content are out there for a lot of Power 5 schools to be able to see, what they're working with. And what you're working with at Oregon State is probably going to be a whole lot better than what you'll experience in your first couple of years of pro ball. But as long as everything goes according to plan for you and you end up in I mean, honestly, what you got at Oregon State might end up being better than what a lot of big league clubs are working with. So
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how all that goes. But let's talk a little bit about summertime. And I know that you didn't play this summer, or at least you didn't leave the Northwest. Something that is huge for college baseball players is how they spend their summers. So I'm sure the opportunity will present itself next summer. Go play on Cape Cod, which I highly recommend. Pretty unique place with as much history in baseball as anywhere at any level. But how did you spend this past summer? And talk us through what your options were and kind of what that decision-making process looked like.
Yeah, so I kind of knew that, I had a goal from again when I committed that I was going to play my freshman season, and I was going to play good enough to where I would be wanted by teams in the Cape after my freshman year. So that had been a goal of mine for a long time, knowing that the Cape's a special place and it was going to give me a lot of opportunities moving forward. So that was goal. And then I, yeah, coming into the CBA or the negotiations between the Players Union and the MLB, I was a sophomore draft eligible player. And then after those negotiations, that changed by about a month. And so I became junior draft eligible. And so pro teams, big league teams want to see you play a summer in the Cape or at USA Baseball, something at the highest level with great pitching. When they're looking at your draft stock, they want to see how you do against those top arms in the country. And so, yeah, I knew I wanted to get a Cape summer, but then having 2 summers, not one, once I became junior eligible, it took me back to like, okay, what is like the best thing for me and what's worked for me in the past, and like being able to take time off the game itself to like have a plan, have an idea, and face like the weaknesses of my game and what I need to get better at, and give it a couple months to just work day in, day out with great intention. Like that is what has made me the player I am today. And I really thrive in those scenarios to kind of step away from the field and just go to work. And so I was like, all right, it's a no-brainer for me to let the Cape team that I was supposed to be going to this summer that know that I wasn't going to be going, and I wanted to, and I told the coaches that I wanted to train and go to Driveline, which is where I'm at right now. So I was sitting in the airport one day, found out that I was junior draft eligible, and I started doing some research and figuring out what I wanted to do, and started writing goals in my notes of what I wanted to improve on and what I wanted to do this summer. So yeah, I thought it was just going to be the best thing for me in terms of moving forward, being the best player moving forward, getting my body right for the next season. And yeah, just building that ceiling, because it's tough when you aren't the most like highly or not athletic, highly the biggest guy, the hit the ball 450 feet, throw the ball 100 miles an hour, toolsy guy. Like you have to find a way to find time to build that ceiling, or you're just going to be the gamer that never made it past A-ball, like you have to build those tools. And so being able to step away and build those tools and gain size, gain strength, and yeah, it was just going to be the best thing for me, no matter what. So I'm going to be going to the Cape next summer, as long as I'm healthy, and hopefully do something great there.
Yeah, I admire the approach. I know, you mentioned it, kind of like there's cycles when it comes to the draft evaluation process, and to go to the Cape after your freshman year, obviously you want to show really well. I've seen it a number of times where a guy goes to the Cape after his freshman year, shows really well, and then either doesn't want to go back to the Cape after his sophomore year because he feels like he's already done that, and it's kind of resting on their laurels a little bit, or two, they go to the Cape and there's all of this pressure to repeat the performance of the previous summer now that it's your draft year.
Exactly.
It kind of puts you in a tough situation. So again, like as enticing as that opportunity is, and I think it's very similar on the high school side when you're an underclassman on the upper class circuit and you perform really well, and I saw that a number of times, and then in their draft year they come out and they repeat the same circuit and they're not the player they were against older, air quote, better competition, and it really plays with the mind. So again, can't say it enough. Really mature approach from you, and obviously taking control of your own destiny and kind of taking control of your own process. So, really cool.
Thanks.
You talked about goal setting a little bit there, touched on it very, lightly there in terms of when you learned you were draft eligible after your junior year. So let's talk about goal setting. We're of the belief that as athletes mature, depending on their level of competition or aspiration, their goal-setting process should evolve. When they're younger, the process might be a little more parent-driven. As they start to form their identity, they should have a bit more input, and if they reach a certain level of competition, like you are, it should be a bit more deliberate, and they should be a little bit more selective as to who they're allowing input from. With that being said, how do you set goals for yourself? Is it all internally driven, or are there certain people in your life that help you set your course?
Yeah, okay. Well, since I can remember, like when I was, I'd say 10 years old, like I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. And like, that's all it was. It was, I want to play in the MLB. And then as I grew older, I learned that like, really the higher I set that limit on myself, the better I can go and the further I can go. And so, yeah, my goals just um, evolve. But for me, it really starts with the long-term vision. It's like I want to be I want to be the greatest player to ever come from Australia, and I want to inspire the next generation of Australians to where we're a dominant country in baseball. And so it's grown into that last couple of years. And then for me, I have to see it like that because when I was 15, 16, like I I wasn't better than some of the guys next to me or whatever in Australia and even across the world in America especially. It's like, all right, I'm not going to be better than him in a week and I'm not going to be better than him in a year, but like I'm going to make sure and do everything in my power that I'm better than him in 3 years, 4 years, and then forever onwards. And it's like just the competitive in me and the the long-term vision, being able to break that down is what it is for goals. So it's like, yeah, I want to be great, but that's so far away. It's like, all right, how can I get a little bit better at everything right now? And breaking it down. Okay, where am I weak right now? So when for me it was like, all right, I'm 15. I'm not going to be better than this guy in a year's time. I'm not going to be better than him in 2 years. Okay, well I got a weak arm right now. Okay, I'm going to do everything in my power for this couple months to get a strong arm. Okay, now I can play some left side infield. Sweet. That makes me a little bit more competitive. All right, now I'm 16. I'm fast, but I really can't steal bases at the level with the men. Okay, I'm going to go find a track coach. Bang, now I steal bases. Okay, now I only hit singles. I'm hitting, but I'm only hitting singles. All right, I need to prove these guys that I can hit for some power. Okay, now I increase my slugging and start putting the ball in the air with some authority. It's like breaking it down to where those weaknesses keep getting ticked off and going away. It's like over the long term, when you break those things down and keep killing those lowest hanging fruits, those weaknesses, that's where the growth is for me. And I've honestly really found that like I've just got to set really high expectations and goals, and as long as I have a plan and intention, I'm fueled for it. And yeah, I guess a lot of the like I'm internally driven for those goals and my passions, but like externally there's a lot of doubt, always has been, always will be. And I love like hearing those kind of doubts. And I keep in mind some of those people that have said things and whatever, and they fuel me to be better. And I really use that. And I want to change the narrative back home, and do some great things. So, yeah.
Well, as excited as I am for, your upcoming baseball career, whether it be at Oregon State and then beyond, and I hope it lasts a long time, and I hope you're able to accomplish the goals that you've set out for yourself. I'm equally as excited for the impact that you're going to have on a lot of young athletes, beyond your playing career, because you're very process driven. That's apparent. But just the way you break everything down, I think there's a huge opportunity there to help that next generation. When your time's up and you hang up the spikes, to follow a similar course. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
And I guess the last bit on goals is, what your goals are for this upcoming school year.
Yeah. I want to win a national championship. I want to take my team to Omaha and then go get it done. And that's really where everything stems from. But yeah, I'm starting to build the connections with the incoming guys, FaceTime, whatever, Instagram DM, just trying to build those connections really early, because I know they're going to make an impact with the amount of guys we lost this year to the draft. And then, yeah, just trying to bring as much knowledge and love into the program again as I can this fall, and just build a winning team that has extreme confidence in themselves in between the white lines. So that's goal number one. And I think if everything clicks for me, I can be the best player in the conference in the Pac-12. So I'd love to be Pac-12 player of the year and win a national championship. I think those two things stand out for me.
Well, as much as I want to wish you good luck, I don't think you're necessarily going to need it because it's apparent that you've been hard at work creating your own luck.
Thanks.
Travis, it's been awesome having you on. Quick shout out to Andrew Rydell for linking us up. Really cool to provide our audience with different perspective, not just from the Australia side, and obviously learning about everything that's going on in Australian baseball, and that's exciting in itself, but just I think a universal perspective on approach to athletic development and achieving your goals and setting your eyes forward and how to go about that. Appreciate you taking the time to come on ahead of the fall. Big sophomore year on deck. Look forward to following along, and hopefully you can get the Beavers back to Omaha and you can reach your ultimate goal.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
And then hopefully, it wasn't lost on me. Travis Bazzana can become what Andrew Jones was for the island of Curacao, and set off a chain reaction and make Australia one of the world giants in baseball. So that'll do it for this episode of the Loden Sports Outlier Sessions. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to continuing to bring you the brightest and most engaging guests from within the Loden Sports Network. To stay on top of what or who is coming next, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Loden Sports. Whether you enjoyed this episode on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.